Right, hello everyone, and welcome back to the P. Carroll Sport Podcast. Paul Carroll here, and as usual, we'll be running down through the Tipperary latest game in the All Ireland Championship or Munster Championship involving Tipperary. It is All Ireland Championship this week. It's our first podcast in about a month, so welcome back. The usual stuff at the start of the podcast. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new. I think we're on 446 subscribers as I'm recording this. Maybe we can get to 500, who knows, but let's keep it going in the right direction. It's been doing pretty well. So yeah, long time no see. It's of Tipperary, haven't been out in action for 4 weeks. So since the Waterford game, I've kept a low profile in terms of recording podcasts. So they played Leash on Saturday afternoon, 332 to 18 points. Kind of a predictable result. And yeah, we're going to talk through that game. As always, if you're new here, I'll give my thoughts on the game. I'll run down through all the Tipperary players, player by player, give my thoughts on how they performed, and we look ahead to what's to come. And what's to come is Galway next Saturday evening, looking like it's going to be in Limerick. That's all going to be sorted out Monday afternoon. As I'm recording this, we're exactly, 9 minutes past 7 on Sunday evening. So the exact fixture is yet to be made, as I'll switch to the camera only mode there. I have a nice little setup here that I can switch back and forth. But yeah, we'll be looking ahead to that Galway game towards the end of the podcast as well. So subscribe to the channel if you're new. It's all free, and yeah, we'll be more regular with the podcast now if Tipperary can stay progressing in the championship. We'll definitely have a podcast after the Galway game, no matter what. But you're here to listen to what happened at the Leash game. Maybe you weren't there, maybe you didn't see it on GA Plus. First of all, you didn't miss much. To be honest, I was commentating on the game on Tip FM. And, first of all, there's a whole conversation to be had about these preliminary quarterfinals. Do they do anyone any good? I don't think yesterday would have done Leash's development any good. It didn't do much for Tipperary either. There's maybe a case for the winner of the Joe McDonagh to go through. But if you're expecting them to turn around in 6 days, I don't think that's any kind of help to the Joe McDonagh team, realistically progressing in the All Ireland. I know Leash did it in 2019, beating Dublin, but it's a fierce, tough ask. 6 days, particularly Leash after losing the Joe McDonagh Cup final, to turn around in 6 days and play a Tier 1 team or Liam McCarthy team in Tipperary, it doesn't make much sense. So maybe that'll be tweaked in the years to come. We'll have to see how that plays out, but I don't think this format is benefiting anyone really. But from a Tipperary point of view, the main thing was getting the win, number one, which they did, and they had it wrapped up fairly early. And the second thing was getting through injury free. And by all accounts, I think Tipperary have done that. I don't think there was any injuries. Robert Doyle replaced at half time, but he didn't seem injured going off at half time or anything like that. So, yeah, 332 to 18 points was the full time score. Tip started off really quickly. Jason Ford had the ball in the back of the net in the opening kind of 5 minutes. Willie Connors was firing over points from everywhere in that early exchanges. He got 3 in about 10 minutes for all kind of long rangers outside the 65. So it was about 1-8 to maybe 3 or 4 points at one stage. Leash did have a goal chance. Reece Shelley made a good save. It was kind of a misplaced short puck out by Reece Shelley that was kind of cut out. Tip did kind of scramble back, but then the ball was won back by Leash, and it forced a good save out of Reece Shelley, the only save he had to make all day. But he'll be happy with the clean sheet. But yeah, Tipperary probably a little bit rusty at times. They started quick, which was good, and because Tip started quick, it kind of quenched any sort of hope, I suppose, that Leash might have had of keeping it close early on and maybe dragging Tip into the latter stages of the game. But Tip started well with that Jason Ford goal, and after that then Leash did get into it. Paddy Purcell hit a few real nice points from distance. Tomas Keys likewise got a few nice scores. But anytime, like, Tip did kind of fall out of it in the halfway through that first half. But then you kind of felt when Tip really wanted to get a few scores, they were able to. And at halftime, it was 118 to 12 points. Second half comes in, and Tip start the second half really strong. Jason Ford gets on the end of a really nice move. It was a short puck out cut out from. We'll start with the second goal first. That was just a long ball pumped down the middle of the field. John McGrath knocked it down. Sam O'Farrell had a really good game. Gets onto it, and just such a good finish from Sam. Just low, bounced it past the goalkeeper, low into the corner. Kind of an unstoppable shot, especially given the greasy conditions. But like Sam O'Farrell, that's his first championship goal, senior hurling for Tipperary. But like, he can really do it all. Like, he was, he set up that first goal for Jason Ford. I think I might have mistaken it on commentary for John McGrath. I kind of get their helmets mixed up at times. It's strange, but because one is Sam O'Farrell wears a green one and John McGrath wears a blue one. But he popped the hand pass into Jason Ford in that first half down the line. Jason cuts in on the left bottom corner far post job, and then the second goal, as we said, Sam breaks onto that flick down from John McGrath and rifles it low past the goalkeeper. The third goal then was the Leash goalkeeper Colin Dunn, who did make a brilliant save from Darren McCarthy in the first half. He was going for a short puck out, a puck out to the wing back. It was cut out by John McGrath, played a ball infield to Andrew Ormond. He was coming down from the centre forward position, bearing down on goals. He hand passed it into Jason Ford, and he finished it far post, low, past the goalkeeper. There was no stopping it. So those were the three Tipperary goals. They could have had a few more. We mentioned that ball by Darren McCarthy where it was a ball played in that bounced in front of him, and he kind of caught it just in front of his man as he was turning, kind of low to the ground, caught it and spun, and he was just in one-on-one with the goalkeeper. It was nearly 2-on-1. He had someone there, but the shot was on for him to go on his own, and he did go on his own, and it was a good save from the goalkeeper, went out for a 65. Other goal chances, John McGrath absolutely rifled the crossbar, and the crossbar in O'Moore Park is like Semple Stadium. It's the kind of square ones, so it just rattled off that and went flying out for a sideline at the far side of the field. And Peter McGarry, who came on for his senior debut, he broke down through the middle of the field. It was an unbelievable run. We'll talk about Peter McGarry in a bit, but unbelievable run down through the middle, just kind of opened up for him. He kind of got the ball closer to the 65 than 45, let's say, and just put it down on the hurley, took off, and then I think was he on his left, rifled it across the goals, across the goalie, I should say, and bang off, just direct off the post. And it was teeming down rain at the time. You could barely see him on commentary, but he had a nice little cameo. But those were goal chances for Tipperary that they didn't convert. I saw in the Saturday game last night, Jamie Callan kind of picked him out as maybe things that Tipperary will look to work on. But it was that type of game where players were maybe trying different things. Like Sam O'Farrell tried a flick pass over his head at one stage, it didn't work, and it was a professional performance from Tipperary. But it was a game that served no real purpose at all in terms of, it was never really competitive. And that's not to disparage Leash at all. As I said, impossible for them to get up for that game. Like, I was comparing it to the Tipperary Club Championship. Imagine Carrick Swan, they lost to Cashel Kilcormac's in the second tier of Tip hurling last year. Like, imagine 6 days after that final, they had to go out and play Thurles Sarsfields or Lockmore Castellini or Killadangan or Toom or whoever, and that is a tough ask. But on the other side of that, the gap between, let's say, the second tier of Tip Club hurling, the top of that second tier, and the top of the first tier, so the top of the Seamus Arena and the top of the Dan Breen, the gap between them, there is a gap there obviously, but that gap isn't as wide as the gap between the top of the Liam McCarthy Cup and the Joe McDonagh Cup, if you get me. So it's even harder for Leash to kind of bridge that gap in 6 days and try to be competitive. So really difficult for them, and as we said, maybe it has to change. And some people are saying, let the 4th team in Munster through instead and the 4th team in Leinster. I'd be very hesitant to do that. I think if 4 out of the 5 teams in Munster went through, it would kind of dilute the championship. The Munster Championship is so good because there's this jeopardy, and there's you have to win every game, or you have to be up for every game. There's no kind of gimmies, or there's no, right, we'll get one win and we'll go through. That doesn't happen, so I think it would take the sting out of the Munster Championship if that was to change, just to let the 4th team through. So I think the two kind of ways of sorting this preliminary quarter-final deal is, maybe there's 3 ways. So the first way I would say is maybe just get rid of the preliminary quarter-final, just have the 3rd team in Munster play the loser of the Leinster final, and have the 3rd team in Leinster play the losers of the Munster final. Just completely scrap basically what we have now this weekend coming with Limerick against Dublin and Tip against Galway. Just have that and forget about this weekend, and that might open up a weekend to maybe spread out the Munster Championship a bit more, and you'll have your 2 weeks between games. That's one option. The other option is, instead of, you have the Joe McDonagh Cup winners go through, so Kildare, they go through and they play one of the either the Leinster team or the Munster team. However you sort that can be sorted out, and then that other preliminary quarter final could be sorted out by having fourth place in Munster play fourth place in Leinster. So if you finish fourth in Munster or fourth in Leinster, you play each other. The two fourth place teams play each other, and the winner of that goes into the preliminary quarter final. That's another option, and I think the third option is completely change the championship and have it like, if you're familiar with the All Ireland Senior Camogie Championship, you have two groups of two groups of 5, I think, and it's played out. Top two teams go to the quarterfinals, and top two teams go to the semi-finals, and second and third in each group go to quarterfinals. So that would mean you'd have to kind of change around the provincial championship, maybe have it a knockout, something that would kind of require a big change. So those are the 3 options I'd see: completely change the championship, have just the winners of the Joe McDonagh Cup go through, and have the 2 4th place teams play each other, or that other option, just scrap the preliminary quarterfinals altogether. So anyway, I don't know how I ended up on that rant, but I wanted to get that point across, because there's a few little bits I want to talk about at the end as well, about structure and penalties and things like that have been annoying me in the media landscape over the course of the last week. But we're 11 minutes in, haven't really talked about what we're here to talk about, and that's this game. So the game didn't have that championship feel at all. It was like a million miles away from what we would have seen in Ennis or in Thurles the last 2 days against Tip and Clare and Tip and Waterford. So didn't have that feeling at all. So it's hard to judge players on this, because it wasn't that championship spec. And another thing is, the Tipperary were 24 points favourites. That was the spread in the bookmakers, and Tip won by 23 points. I don't know how they can predict it so close, but that was one thing I wanted to mention as well. So I'll preface everything I'm about to say about all the players and their performances with, you can't really take too much from it. Okay, so Rhys Shelley in goals. We mentioned he made that good save. Some of his puck outs were a little bit off. The short ones were forcing players to maybe knock it down to themselves rather than catch it. That's just all kind of rust, maybe. I'd say it was a kind of a wet day as well. So in that sense, the game was good for Tipperary to just blow off some cobwebs. But Rhys will be delighted with that save he made and the fact he kept a clean sheet. So no complaints there. Robert Doyle was with his man throughout. He actually got a really nice score in the first half. Robert Doyle looked so comfortable. He ran through the middle. I think Sam O'Farrell maybe laid it off to him, and he just ran through the middle, took it up inside the 45 off his left, really comfortable and over the bar. And that's no surprise to anyone who's been following Tipperary club hurling in the last couple of years. He's playing full forward the last couple of years for Clounty Rossmore. So no fear there for Robert Doyle at that half of the pitch. So he done very well. Brian O'Meara was on an awful lot of ball in the second half when Craig Morgan went off in particular, but he done fine. Michael Breen as well, as always, just so tough coming out with that ball. So strong, real brave coming out with the ball. He's been one of the standouts for Tipperary this year. Craig Morgan, Craig was kind of playing that kind of deeper role for large parts. Always good on the ball, always an option for any of the defenders coming out. And there was one point in particular, I'm trying to see who maybe got the score. Was it? I think it might have been Darren McCarthy early in the second half, where a ball was played to Craig Morgan, and he was just maybe centre back position on the 45, and he just drilled the ball bang straight to Darren McCarthy. Darren McCarthy over the bar. It was a real kind of classy score that you'd see from the top, just the top tier of hurling, where you have that just zipped pass, 40 yards bang right there over the bar. Ronan Maher very strong, got a yellow card at one stage, just tapped the lad on the head, was kind of late, a bit too far behind his man under a puck out, and just gave him a little tap. No malice or anything like that. I think he hit a wide in the first half as well, did Ronan Maher, but he got taken off in the second half just to kind of get the body ready for next week. And there was a lovely reception for Ronan Maher, and I was saying on commentary, I don't know when the last time he was taken off in a game, if ever, that he's had that experience of just the whole crowd clapping for him. So that was maybe a nice experience. But he probably strikes me as someone who's like, just leave me on. I don't want to come off. So but nonetheless, he came off. Fine game for him. Joe Caesar, I thought it was our first time seeing Joe since he was injured for a good while there. So our first time seeing him, and I thought he'd looked very rusty in the first half. He was kind of hesitant in a couple of possessions. Second half, I thought he was much better. He actually got a really nice score as well, off his left-hand side, out near the sideline on the uncovered stand side of the field in Port Leash. That was a really nice score. I thought he was much better in the second half. So John, that was the benefit of this game, that some lads could get game time into him and blow off any cobwebs and build up towards next week. Willie Connors got man of the match on GA Plus. He got 5 points from play. I think he got 4 in the first half, definitely 3 in the first 15 minutes or so. And Willie was really good. You know, he was operating, like, he couldn't believe the space he was getting, I'd say, in that first half. In those first kind of 10-15 minutes, between the two 65s, no one near him for a couple of those scores. But he's such a good long-range shot taker as well. We've seen it with Killadangan. What year was it? Was it against Thurles Sarsfields in the county final? Did he get one from distance to force a replay? And then Killadangan won the replay. What was that, 2024? No, sure, last year was Lockmore, 2023 it would have been. So I think I'll have to check that up. It must have been 2023, wasn't it? Yeah, but anyway, Willie Connors, really good long-range shooting, and you know, it was a fine performance. He got man of the match, so very good performance from Willie Connors. Good hooking and blocking and in around rucks. He's always really active. I always say that about Willie Connors. Really active player, always looking for the ball, never afraid to get involved. Seamus Kennedy in midfield as well, on a lot of ball, very comfortable in possession. John, nice to see him starting a championship game and get through it, no bother. So fair play to Seamus Kennedy, and 2 St Mary's players on the field at one stage as well there, and Peter McGarry come on. Alan Tynan was someone we hadn't seen, made a brilliant catch in the first half and won a free from it, got a score as well. He kind of won wide where he maybe took it on too long and there was a lad right behind him and he was kind of half hooked. I think it was Podge Delaney who was behind him for the hook in that occasion. But Alan Tynan, really important for him to get through the full 70 minutes and get that fitness back as well after that hamstring injury he suffered against Clare. I think it was hamstring anyway. It was definitely against Clare. Andrew Ormond, 3 points from play. I thought he was brilliant. Anytime the ball came near him, he was doing the right thing. He was really a threat to Leash. And just his ascendancy this year has been really important to Tipperary. It's kind of like a whole new player has emerged. We've always known there's talent there, but he's really taken it to a new level this year, Andrew Ormond. So it's really good to see. He set up that second goal for Jason Ford, the third goal of the game. Really good performance from Andrew Ormond, and has quickly become a very important player for this Tipperary team and how they play. Sam O'Farrell at number 12 could have had a man of the match. Really, I thought he was very good, very involved, taking puck outs, getting on breaking ball. He scored 1-1 and was setting up scores as well, and very active throughout the field. After one kind of possession, he kind of felt his, it looked like hamstring or something at one stage, but and it was kind of like, oh geez, no, please be okay. And he was fine. So he instead running on anyway. So at that stage, I was like, Sam, would you just stop running after your man? We're fucking 20 points up with 5 minutes to go. But that's not in him. You know, he's going to stay going. But really intelligent player. I think one of Sam O'Farrell's strengths, and it's a really good one, is just knowing where to be. He's able to find pockets, knows where to kind of pop up for a turnover or for the goal itself. He made that run brilliantly. He judged it where John McGrath was going to knock it down, and John McGrath likewise knew where to flick it down. But really intelligent player and kind of wise beyond his years is Sam O'Farrell, and having a real fine debut campaign for the Tipperary senior team. Darren McCarthy, I have him down for 9 points. Missed one kind of gimme of a free that he'd usually score. It was kind of on the edge of the 40-metre arc, kind of halfway between the sideline and the middle of the field, right of the goals. So he kind of faded it past the far post. So he'll be a little bit upset with that, but he was really good. He probably should have scored a goal as well in one-on-one with the goalkeeper. But it did produce a good save from Colin Dunn, in fairness as well. But he probably tried to place it, which is you can either place it or power it. There's no real wrong option really in that scenario. Ken Hogan on co-commentary was saying that if it was against Galway or whatever, he probably would have tried to lift the net out of it. So very good performance from Darren McCarthy, and he got a huge reception coming off the field as well. There was a really good Tip crowd there, which is great to see. And at half time, when all the youngsters were on the pitch, like most of them had Tipperary jerseys on, and there was a few tip chants at different points of the game, but a really nice reception for Darren McCarthy and any of the kind of substitutes coming off, and they were kind of greeted by just about 30 or 40 youngsters that were waiting at the sideline where the players come out the little small gate to go into the stand, and every sub that came off was greeted by about 50 youngsters, so that was a nice to see as well. Darren McCarthy, really fine game, and 9 points. And we move on to John McGrath. He scored 3 points. and he'll be wondering how he didn't score a goal. Played out to him, I think, well, it might have been from Andrew Ormond again, I'm not entirely sure. And it was one of those ones, he was maybe about on the angle 12 yards from goals, and he just kind of opened up the shoulders and went to roof it. And as I said, directly off the crossbar and back out over the sideline. So he had a couple of really, it's John McGrath, like you know what you're going to get, really intelligent plays and passes and some really fine scores. He got one out in the sideline early in the game, which was a really nice score. I think it was him anyway. Jason Ford, 2-4 for him. He resumed free taking when Darren McCarthy went off, so he knocked over 2 points from frees, I think, and 2-2 from play. Really good finishes. That's nothing new from Jason Ford. Really good finisher, and yeah, moving well. It was a game where I don't think Tipperary maybe showed too much, if you get me. There was a lot of just route one, hit the ball down on top of John McGrath and Jason Ford and that type of thing. So I in my head anyway, I think that the management team and players maybe might have been conscious of, let's not give away too much here in terms of setup or anything like that. So there was a bit of route one going on at different times from Tipperary. Now I could be reading that completely wrong, but I just kind of felt that as well. But Jason Ford, real fine performance from him, 2-4 is what he finished up with. So we did use all 5 substitutions. Johnny Ryan came on for Robert Doyle. So good to see Johnny Ryan getting game time. He came on at half time and yeah, had a fine game. He didn't do much too wrong at all. Made a few kind of nice blocks in that second half when there was kind of 1v1 inside. I remember one stage that he done particularly well back there. But it's great to get all these lads game time because you don't know when you're going to need one of these players to come on the field. And if you look at our substitutes, we don't have a lot of like full backline cover, and Johnny Ryan can do that. So very important to get him a bit of game time there as well. Brian McGrath come on for Craig Morgan, and we're all so used to Brian McGrath now. Very steady player, doesn't make too many mistakes. Usually very clever with the ball, so and good to read a game. So Brian McGrath done fine when he came on. Peter McGarry, for his senior debut, come on for Ronan Maher, scored a point. Should have scored that goal that we mentioned, but I thought he did really well. Now, as I started this conversation with, it's hard to take too much from this game. By the time Peter McGarry came onto the field, there was a lot of spaces opening up. Tipperary were playing the ball around, but he's a player that's very easy on the eye in terms of his ball striking, his technique and things like that. And yeah, he's a nice player to watch. If you're from outside the county, maybe you'd kind of, if you looked at Peter McGarry taking a shot and goal, you'd say, yeah, typical kind of tip forward, classy, kind of a striker at the ball. So he's that kind of player. And I think Peter McGarry is maybe, in my head, he's kind of the same age as Sean Kennelly, so maybe like 23-ish, 23, 24. I feel like that's his kind of age. He was in with the Tip Senior Footballers for a year as well, so he's been on the bench for the last 2 Munster Championship games, and those were like biggest games of the year. So he's obviously impressing in training, and he got his chance and scored he scored a point. He probably should have scored a goal. So I think he was impressive from his cameo performance, Peter McGarry, and good to see another kind of lad make his debut with Tipperary this year. Oisín O'Donoghue come on for Andrew Ormond. He scored a point, and he was brilliant. Like 50-50 ball going in on top of him. He's a youngster, just turned 19 in January. And there was a couple of occasions where he was, maybe had 2 lads on him, rucking, dirty day, rain coming down. He was able to win the ball and take it off him, fired over a point. He got cleaned out of it at one stage, going through on goals after overturning one of the Leash defenders. On another day that, I don't know, you'd have to look back, could it have been a black card or whatever, but no one was calling for it at that point of the game for sure. But Oisín O'Donoghue, as he has been all year, really impressive for Tipperary. And Joe Fogarty came on. We hadn't seen Joe in championship action for Tipperary. We'd seen him once before. I think he came on in 2023 against Waterford late on. Well, not I think, he did come on against Waterford in 2023 at the last, remember the game down in Thurles where Waterford won, and if Tip won they would have been in a Munster final that day. He came on late that day. I'm trying to think, did he play against Offaly or Galway that year? I'd have to look it up, but he was busy when he came on. He got a point, had a couple of other shots as well, and yeah, good to see him getting game time as well, because all these players have been in there for 7-8 months at this stage. I know Joe played the first league game. He definitely scored a point against Galway in that game. So, good to see all these lads getting game time and getting the opportunity to represent Tipperary at championship level. So that is the performances from Leash. We had 9 points from Tomas Keys, 4 from Paddy Purcell, and then we'd 1 each from James Keys. Aaron Dunphy come on and got a score. Podge Delaney got 1. Jordan Walsh got 1. And number 18, Donica Hartnett, started at cornerback instead of Diarmuid Conway. He actually got a really nice score at one stage as well. So all in all, not a whole pile you can take from the game, but 332 to 18 points. The main thing for Tipperary was win the game and be injury free, and they've done that. And they've also managed to rest Owen Connolly. Owen Connolly missed the game from just talking around. I'd say if Tip were playing Galway in a quarter-final the weekend gone by, Owen Connolly would have been playing. It seems like that type of vibe, so he should be good to go for Galway next weekend. There was no Noel McGrath used, no Jake Morris used, different players like that. So they got well rested and should be ready to go for next weekend. Just a quick mention on Jake Morris, if you didn't hear it, every Friday night, 6 o'clock on Tip FM, I have the show Across the Line. And I had a really good interview with Jake Morris, or a really good chat with Jake Morris at the launch of the All-Ireland Championships last week. So it's a kind of interview that hasn't dated. I only asked him about the Leash game towards the end. We talk about kind of his rise through the Tipperary ranks in terms of coming in as a young 18-year-old back in 2018, 2019, playing with the under-20s and coming up and having to develop his body and change his role. And now he's vice captain, how he's managing with that. He gave a great few words about Noel McGrath and how important he is, and how important he is with Darren McCarthy and a couple of the younger players. So it's a good chat with Jake Morris. If you just type in Jake Morris interview Tip FM, it's here. If you're looking at the screen, it's on the Tip FM SoundCloud, Spotify, Tip FM YouTube as well. So it's just 15 minutes long. It's the first 15 minutes of this show that is 42 minutes long. So if you want to check that out, I do recommend having a look at that. Of course I do. I made the show. Of course I'd recommend you have a look, but it's just one of those ones that if you haven't heard, that's just a reminder to check that out as well. So those lads got a rest. We didn't see the likes of him and Noel McGrath. We mentioned Owen Connolly. So yeah, it's pretty much job done for Tipperary, and we move on to Galway. As I said, looking like it's going to be Saturday evening. Probably Gaelic grounds. That was like what I was told yesterday. That will be about maybe 80% that it was going to be Saturday evening in the Gaelic grounds. So that will all be confirmed on Monday afternoon. So maybe by the time you're listening to this, maybe you already know. So with Galway, it's a repeat of what we had in 2023 against Galway. And Tip were really, really poor that day. It was kind of a poor game, that quarter-final 2 years ago in 2023. And Tip, lost by 2 points for finish. In my head, it was 118 to 116. Maybe it was 120 to 118 or something like that. It was something like that. Shall we look it up? Let's have a quick look. What was the score in that game? But yeah, it's going to be a repeat of that. Tipperary, Galway, 2023 hurling. 120 to 118. Yeah, I remember that game. I feel like John McGrath was the goal scorer for Tip that day, wasn't he? John McGrath with the goal, yeah. So, look, I think Tipperary are in a better place in 2025 than they were in 2023. Like 2023, we had, that performance against Waterford in the last round of the Munster Championship. That took the wind out of our sails a bit. We hammered Offaly then 7-38 to something in the preliminary quarter-final, and then it was a no-show against Galway. So I think Tipperary will probably be not carrying that with them, but they'll have maybe learned from that experience of how to deal with that build-up to the preliminary quarter-final and then the quick turnaround to the quarter-final. So I feel like maybe the squad and the management might have learned a couple of things from that they've brought in this time. So Tip should be better prepared. We haven't really seen any of that style of performance from Tipperary this year, that kind of no show, no energy. So let's hope we don't see that. Definitely not for the remainder of the year or going forward. But that's the game. Galway are going to be coming into this off a 2-week break after kind of putting in a bad showing in the Leinster final. It has to be said, they did just put a purple patch together late in that game and bring it back to 3 or 4 points. And The goalkeeper, who was, I think, third choice goalkeeper, had an unfortunate one go, kind of long ball drop into the back of the net late on against Kilkenny. So Galway are a bit of an enigma in the terms of, you look at their team, there's some top quality players there. Colin Mannion in unbelievable form. Conor Whelan hasn't hit the heights, but Conor Whelan is Conor Whelan. Like, we all know what he can do and how good he is, how strong he is, his running ability, and just how tough and how much of a good player he is. So, Galway, there'll be more than a sting in Galway, and it's a fixture that Tipperary have struggled with. I think the last two championship meetings, Galway have beaten Tipperary. So we definitely owe them one. We had great battles with them, 2015, 16, 17. There was some brilliant matches there between Tip and Galway, and they've won the last couple. So we definitely owe them one. It's a chance for Tipperary to get back to Croke Park, which Tip haven't been in Croke Park for a championship game since the 2019 All-Ireland final. So this is a massive game for Tipperary. And yeah, I think they'll be really up for it. I think Tip are definitely good enough to win the game, but I think Galway will definitely show more and be a lot better than they were against Kilkenny. I think they'll want to do that for themselves, and they won't be happy with their performance in the Leinster final. And it might even be a thing with Galway at the minute that just they're really struggling to beat Kilkenny in Leinster finals in recent times. But they won't have that kind of mental hang up when it comes to Tipperary because of recent experiences. So, Galway won't fear Tip. But I think Tip, as I said, are in a better place than they were in 2023. But this is a massive game now. Of course it is. It's an All-Ireland quarter-final, it goes without saying. But a chance to get back up to Croke Park, it would be massive for the development of this Tipperary team. And even further on from the development, when you're in the latter stages of the All-Ireland Championship, you're not thinking about development or anything like that. You're thinking about, winning the whole thing. Every team that's remaining is thinking that. So that's where we are. So, I'm really looking forward to the game. It's going to be one that, as the week goes on, I'll be getting kind of nervous thinking about what's going to happen. But anytime there's a Tip Galway match, you can kind of reflect back on some classics that we've had in recent times. You look at some of Shamie Callan's performances against Galway there 10 years ago. 10 years ago now, what's he score? 3-8 one year, and then like 3-6 the following year against Galway. He was unreal in those games. You think that to Joe Canning's wonder point, that probably produced one of my favourite sports pictures of all time, even though it's a bad moment for Tipperary. But when Joe Canning's taking that shot, and that famous picture of him looking at the ball, everyone in the background, I'll try find it if I can, for the listeners or for the viewers here on YouTube. If you're listening on Spotify, you might know the picture. I'm thinking Joe Canning score versus Tipperary 2017. Is that going to bring it up? Let's see, images. Yeah, this is the one. Can I not make that a bit bigger? But it's just such a good picture because he's looking at the ball and everyone in the background is just kind of living in the moment, looking at the ball, and it's just kind of one of those time stands still, everyone there, nothing matters but looking at this ball flying through the air, and it just captures it. There's some people jumping up with their hands in their heads. I'd say there's some people kind of there is this girl in the front is two hands covering her mouth. There's a young lad beside her with the two hands on the head. So just a brilliant picture. But those are some kind of moments from the Tip Galway fixtures in recent times. So really looking forward to the game. And yeah, I'd give Tip a really good chance. How could you not? But Galway, as I said, I'd imagine, I don't know if the odds for this game are out yet, but I'd imagine it's going to be pretty close in the bookmakers' eyes as well. So yeah, really looking forward to it. We'll be previewing it on Tip FM throughout the week, and yeah, after the game on Saturday night or maybe Sunday, I'll be recording the podcast as well. Maybe Sunday. My birthday is next weekend, so maybe it'll be closer to Sunday when I'm doing the review. So that's what's to come for Tipperary. Let me know what you think in the comments below. How do you see that game going? What do you think of it? And yeah, we'll see what the comments think. If anyone wants to go out on the limb, maybe I'm sitting on the fence here a bit, but I do give Tip a good chance. But I just be wary that Galway are going to come with something. Like, they've been playing Conor Whelan out the field a lot this year, and I know if I was on the field playing in goals, that's a for a tip. I'd love to see Connor wheeling out the field, get him away from the goals, because he's so dangerous inside. But Galway will have something. They'll have to switch up something. So that'll all be revealed next weekend. So really looking forward to that game. And before we finish off, we're 35 minutes in. So one or two things I wanted to mention: the penalties discussion. Yeah, this is we're a week on from the Munster final. What a entertaining, just dramatic thriller of a game that was last weekend. I was watching it in the pub with a load of lads, pub full, so we couldn't hear the commentary or anything like that, but it kept us entertained for a good 3 hours. And then, you kind of come home, you look at Twitter, and people are like, oh, this wasn't a classic. The standard, there was poor quality, and there was wides, and the ref let too much go, and why is it going to penalties? And it's just kind of like, this is why we can't have nice things. Any good game, it's the ref let too much go, and do you know what? Anyway, maybe he did, but it made for a really entertaining game. And if a ref is letting things go, and he's consistent with it, then the players naturally get a feel for what's a free and what's not. Like, there was a few times there where I was watching the match, and there was one or two times where the ball went to Patrick Horgan or whatever, and you're like, Jesus, he's getting pulled and dragged out of, and no free. And then you see the replay, and it's like, maybe Patrick Horgan holding the hurley and swinging back, trying to win a free. And you're like, you know what? Good refereeing. He's not giving a free for someone trying to buy a free. And that's not me having a go at Patrick Horgan. There was examples of that on both sides of the field. But, once a player does that once and doesn't get a free, he kind of knows, well, I'm wasting my time doing that. And, they go for the ball. Now, there was a few, coming out of defence, you're getting wrapped up and a few things like that. But all in all, I thought it made for an entertaining game, so I wouldn't be too hung up on the refereeing of the game. The whole penalties thing, it annoys me. It really does. I like penalties. I'll say that straight away. And a lot of you listening probably don't like penalties, and that's fine too. But if your argument for penalties has anything got to do with it being a tough way to lose a game, or it being cruel, or I think there was an article today. It might have been, it was Tommy Conlon, I think, in the Examiner, and he's gone on about and he's a brilliant writer and things like that, but he was going on about how it's hard for the players, and they're amateurs, and you're putting all this pressure on them, and it's cruel, and they have to go to work, and people are going to be saying, oh, this lad missed a penalty. It's kind of like, that's sport, not everyone can win. And if Darragh Fitzgibbon had that 65 to level the game, if he missed that would have been worse than losing a penalty shootout, I think. Because in a penalty shootout, there's 5 chances for each team, or however long it takes. It's not one fella, if you get me. So that's just sport. There's no nice way to lose a Munster final. If you wanted them to go there's arguments then for golden score, but golden score in Limerick last weekend, next score wins. There was a gale force wind going down the field there, I think, at one stage. So if someone had that, the ref could throw the ball in, and someone could, it's a greater advantage to one team. And is that fair? I don't think that's fair. Whereas penalties is just, it couldn't be any fair. You pick 5 players, we pick 5 players, we try and score a penalty on your goalkeeper, and you try and score a penalty on our goalkeeper, and that's it. And this whole thing of, oh, it's not in the GAA, whatever, penalties are in the GAA. If you get fouled inside the 14, inside the large parallelogram, or whatever they call it, inside the box, as I'd call it, it's a penalty, and that's what happens. There's another argument that, it's not the skills of the game. It's rising the ball, striking the ball, that is hurling. That is a skill of the game. And what I like about it as well is, in rugby, they have I was going to say the free taking, or the penalties as they call it in rugby. But if you had a 65s shootout in hurling, yeah, that's one way of doing it, but you're not actively going against the opposition, if you get me. Whereas at least if you're trying to score on the opposition goalkeeper, it has that element of one team versus the other. So that's why I like it in that sense. People call them for a replay. If the replay was this weekend, we wouldn't have had as good of a game as we had last weekend, because players were cramping up, players were crippled, players need the time to recover for these games. And back in the day, there were some great replays, and there's so much history, and there's so much history around replays in GAA. But that was way before the split season or anything like that, where the replay could be 3 weeks time, 2 weeks time. We'll play it down the line. Whereas now it would have to be played next weekend, and it just wouldn't be as good, and it's way too hard on the players, and it's a disadvantage then for the teams going through. So I think games should end on the day, unless you're to like. I don't think we need to factor in a weekend for replays. Because then if you won, let's say this week was factored in for a replay, and the preliminary quarterfinals were pushed out to next weekend, and we had this gap week where, let's say, whoever won last weekend, let's say Cork beat Limerick in normal time, they would have 5 weeks till the semi-final then, and it's like, that's just not good. So I just think people need to not get over it. Like, you're fine if you have your opinion where you just don't like penalties and you think it takes away from the drama, or what you'd like to see it won on the field. But it's such a rare event. Like, it's not like we've seen 5 games go to penalties in the last few years in hurling. We've seen one, and we saw one in the Christie Ring a few years ago. So I just don't think we need to be getting rid of it or coming up with some new thing or playing an extra 10 minutes or anything like that. It is the tiebreaker. It's a game goes level after normal time. You play 2 periods of extra time, and if they're still level, then it's penalties. It's the final. it's the tiebreaker. Like, that's it. Like, it's not happening every game. So you have 90 minutes to win on the field in hurling, and if you can't do it, then that's how it has to be separated. If you want finals to go to replays, well, then that's fine. But if you want, I don't think it should be a week. Let's see how it plays out, because I don't think finals will be going to replays from now on. I think finals will be going to replays from now on, as far as I know, maybe this year. So if it was to go to a replay, like, you wouldn't want it to be a 6-day turnaround, would you, or a 7-day? Maybe that's how it was back in 2013. I think it might have been, and 2014 with Tip and Kilkenny. Maybe it was a week. So maybe it is enough, but I just think penalties, it's a really dramatic, it's good for viewing. Is it hard on the players who miss? Of course it is, but Jez, if Dara Fitzgibbon, as I said, missed that 65, that would have been hard on the players. If you make a mistake and get sent off, that's hard on the players. That is sport. You can't be making rules just for you don't want lads being upset if they lose. Like, what? But anyway, I've gone on a big rant here, but that's been one that's annoying me, and I could see it coming. I even tweeted the minute the game went 2 penalties before penalties were taken. I already had a tweet out to be like, I better not see a load of people saying, oh, this is a terrible way to lose. And the whole media week was spent about talking about penalties and replays should be in, and it would sicken you a bit, but anyway, that's just a differing of opinion. And yeah, I kind of want to leave that behind me, because that has kind of withered me the last while. But anyway, that is the end of this week's podcast. If you've enjoyed all that, as I said, be sure to give us a like, subscribe to the channel, all free. It just kind of helps the channel build kind of viewership and numbers and things like that. So what does that do for me? I don't know. It's nice to see the channel growing and that people are watching and enjoying. So if you have any suggestions or anything, be sure to leave the comments as well. And yeah, that is pretty much it. As I said, next week, next week we'll be looking back on the Tip and Galway game in particular. And yeah, we'll be hoping that we'll be on the road to Croke Park on the first weekend of July from a Tipperary point of view. So really looking forward to that. And yeah, we'll see how the week progresses. And until then, if you want a little bit more content, as I said, that Jake Morris interview is well worth your time, in my humble opinion. So if you've enjoyed this, like, subscribe, do all that. And we will chat to you next week. Goodbye and enjoy the week.